This is Bill Ayers on 95.5 PLJ. We're back with our Community Connection show, and we have two guests tonight. Dalvini Powell is the president of the United Probation Officers Association right here in New York, and Joanne Palmer was a probation officer for 32 years, and now she's retired, and they're going to talk to us about the work that they've done, and also about a sort of a crisis that's developed in the union, between the union and the city. So why don't you tell us a little bit about your work? Why don't we start off with you, Dalvini?
Okay, currently I am the president of the United Probation Officers Association, I represent over 700 men and women, probation officers, assistant, probation officer trainees, probation officers, and supervising probation officers, right here in the 5 boroughs. Okay,
so that's a big job, and you're also a supervisor probation officer, right?
Yes, my civil service title is probation supervisor.
Okay, and Joanne, you're retired now, but you were a probation officer for 32 years, right?
Yes, I was. My last title was supervising probation officer.
You dealt with families and also adult services. Yeah. Okay. So tell us a little bit. Start off with Dalvini. Tell us a little bit about the union and what kind of work that you guys do. I know you're a very crucial part of the criminal justice system, and we've got a lot of problems with the criminal justice system here in New York and throughout the whole country. Needs to be reformed drastically. There's a lot of people who are in jail don't need to be, and there's people who get out and wind up going back again too quickly. So tell us a little bit about the work that you do, Dalvini.
So it seems like when people think of the criminal justice system, they think of the courts, the police, and they think of corrections, but they tend to forget about another piece of the puzzle, which is probation.
Yes.
And probation is the alternative to incarceration and also the alternative to placement. So probation officers we work with family court and adult services. So we're a combination of the two. We are peace officers, and we're responsible for holding the men and women and youth who have been convicted of a criminal offense, and in family court it's called a finding. We provide services to them and guide them in hopes that they'll become law-abiding citizens and try to reduce victimization and while they remain in the community. There are more moving parts. There are so many different moving parts to probation. We do work, the probation officers do intake work in family court and adult. In family court we have intake evening, day, and on the weekends. We also provide reports for the courts. We do supervision, and in family court we also do adjustment, which Ms. Palmer can talk to you more about, and we do field work. And whether a person comes to adult or family court through the criminal justice system, at some point they're going to be dealing with a probation officer.
Sure. So you did this for 32 years, Joanne. Tell us a little bit about some of your journey and some of the things that strike you about the work and about the need.
Okay, well, I began my tenure at probation in adult court, and I was doing pre-sentence investigation reports. This consists of individuals, adults, who were convicted of a crime either by plea or by trial. So I did background investigations, and I submitted the reports to the judge to determine whether probation was suitable for the candidate or whether or not they would be incarcerated, etc. With that being said, briefly, that's one aspect of adult court. You also have supervision and other components, but my main job title was investigations. Then I was promoted to a supervisor in family court, and as Ms. Powell indicated, adjustment in family court. The difference between adult court and family court is that a child can be released to their parents without bail. In adult court, most of the time there's bail issue. But depending on the severity of the crime in family court, you can be released to your parent without bail. There really isn't any bail. Additionally, depending on the crime, we have a unit that we call adjustment. So we have like 5 to 7. We have several days in which we determine whether the case should move forward into court. Mm-hmm. That's basically what adjustment is. If throughout our preliminary investigation, we may hold a case open, and for 30 days, we can get an extension, I believe 60 days, and that will, the respondent, which is the child, will have to be involved. They would be involved with things that might help them, like they have to go to school. We might have a program for them if they smoke marijuana or something like that. And then if they complete adjustment, their case doesn't move forward in court. That's really what adjustment is about.
Okay. Now, there's a lot of talk about bail these days, and that many people wind up in jail for a long period of time just because they can't make a relatively small amount of bail. You've had that experience. Both of you have had that experience over all these years. Tell us what your feeling is about bail, about how you think it ought to be changed.
I think, I'll take that. I think bail should be, it's sad because you have had people, because an adult that's been held in custody because they couldn't make $1 bail.
Yeah.
And when I testified before City Council back in April 18th, 2000, this year, I had suggested something like electronic monitoring for people who can't make bail, that wouldn't otherwise make bail, but they might be kind of like risky as far as flight issues, and to consider something like that for them. Bail needs to be looked at more closely, especially in the lower communities where there's people have very few little bit of money.
Yes.
So bail is. I have a lot of concerns when it comes to bail. Sometimes I don't think it's always fair.
Well, I mean, isn't it true that almost half of the people who are in jail in New York City are there because they can't make bail?
More than like Joanne.
Well, statistic-wise, I don't know what the statistics are, but if you look at the law, the main purpose of bail is to make sure that you come back to court.
Absolutely.
Basically, that's it. That's my take on it. Okay,
but if somebody has a minor offense, and they get a big bail or even a fairly large bail, and they can't make it, they could wind up in jail for years, right?
I can't really speak to that. Honestly, I really can't, because there's so many different factors that might be involved with that I really can't say. I can't, and I know Joanne can't. It's really not that clean cut, and there might be some other things that might be connected with that individual's situation, because we have to look at the individuals and what might be the situation. But the truth, one thing that is true, that there are more people of color that's being held in custody than people of non-color. And that's a concern, and we have to wonder why is that? Why is that some people, the people of non-color, are more get higher bails than people of non-color? I don't understand why that is.
Well, especially when you come to something like marijuana, right?
Right. Why is that? I don't know. That I can't speak about. No.
All right. So we know that the criminal justice system has a lot of problems to it, and both of you have been a part of it for many, many years. You've seen some of the good things that happen and some of the bad things that happen. Tell us some of the success stories that you had over the years, Ms. Palmer. In helping clients to get back to a normal life again.
Well, I had one individual, family background, not too good, but eventually that person ended up going to one of the top state schools and subsequently received her degree, and she has a very good job right now. Mm-hmm. She's doing very well. We maintained contact while I was working. When she was in the building or whatever, or in the area working, she would come by and stop by and, thank me. And throughout the years, I spoke about that particular person because, when someone comes a long way and the family dynamic and they're young, you get a feel for them. I have a high level of trying to help people because I grew up in that neighborhood. You know, I grew up in that neighborhood, and who could tell me what the need is more than me, because I experienced growing up in that neighborhood, and I've seen the positive and the negatives in people. And sometimes if you listen to them and you try to say, well, hey, how can I help them? And you find a program or something to assist them, you know, half the battle to me is won.
Sure.
You know, so I feel compelled as a probation officer, I'll always be a probation officer first, to tap in on the needs, not only of the individual, but the needs of the community, because you got to look at the safety. But you have some people, they just need you to talk to them, to help them, to give them the direction, be a mentor to them.
Exactly.
That's what I felt I did, being a mentor.
And to piggyback off of that, one of the most rewarding things about being a probation officer and a supervisor is when they come back and they say thank you. And they say that if it wasn't for probation, that I wouldn't be where I'm at today. And that's very rewarding, whether it's an adult or a youth, or when the families come and say thank you so much for helping my child. Because to me, probation is like a second chance agency, and what I'm not no disrespect to no other law enforcement, because the reality is that we all have a role that we have to play in the criminal justice system. Sure. Whether you're police, corrections, lawyer, judge, but we all have a role. It's like the body, your body. You can't function without your eyes. You can't, each one needs each other. But it's very rewarding when they come back and they say thank you for helping us.
So, as part of being a probation officer, you're meeting with people, and what are the things that you're trying to do with them? I mean, obviously you're trying to get them to stay out of jail and not commit crimes, but how do you do that? What kind of services do you provide for them?
Well, right now, probation officers always, we create supervision plans. We create supervision plans, and they're a part of the plan, right? We hold them accountable for the actions for the mistakes that they made in the past. Like you said, we provide services depending on what, like Ms. Palmer said, depending on what their needs are. But first you have to find out where they're at, because everybody that comes through those doors is not going to always be ready to change. Or to
that's true.
Right. So that's one of the challenges. So you have to figure out what that key is. What is it that individual needs to get them to where they need to be? We have to sell it and get them to buy into it. And the good thing about it, when we do it, we don't just do the individual, whether it's a child or an adult. We bring in the whole circle, the family, anybody in the community, to try to help this person and guide them in the right direction.
Okay, so do you have ways of helping them to get jobs too? Because that's crucial.
Yes, we do. We have relationships with community outreach programs. We have programs right on site. We have neons. Joanne, what's the full thing of the neons? We have neons, which is community people who come into the locations and they provide education for them, job readiness.
Job readiness program, sure.
Job readiness program, yes.
We have a
high school equivalency program.
Right. And for the kids, same thing. You have education, job readiness programs. We have a program called Youth Rap, where the kids work on the weekends along with the probation officers at different locations, and they have a relationship with different vendors, and the kids get a chance to work with them. And the same thing with adults. We have programs like Archers, mentoring programs. we have a whole wealth of different programs. And one of the things we have with probation that a lot of people don't know, we have in the neons, we have where people in the community can come and actually get clothes, and for the probationers too, to get clothes and food too as well. And sometimes they have the probationers help them give out food and teaching them how to give back to the community.
All right, that's a great thing. What are some of the other needs that you find? Certainly getting a job and often food and clothing, those are all needs. What are some of the other needs that somebody has when they get out of prison, or maybe they don't go to prison, they're on probation? What do you need to help them to make sure they don't wind up going back to prison?
Some of them might need mental health services.
Yes.
Some of them might need substance abuse services. Quite a bit of them tend to need mental health services or drug or substance abuse services. What else, Joe? Domestic violence.
Yes.
It's a whole. What else? It's a whole bunch of services that they may need. It depends on who they are and what they services might need. Some of them might housing. Housing could be another issue for them.
Sure.
They could be victims of domestic violence, whether it be with a spousal relationship or a child being abused. It could be a whole gamut of different services that they may need.
Do you find that a lot of the people who come your way, who have committed some sort of a crime, were also criminalized themselves? That they were abused in some way or another?
Yeah, I find that a lot, and especially I remember because I too used to work in adult, and then before I became the president of the union, I became a supervisor in family court, and I find that by the time they get to probation, and Joanne backed me up on it, by the time they get to probation, they've been through so many different systems that they're kind of tired, and we have to build trust before we even can go to the next level. So, and then I used to always wonder, as far as educational needs, were they always, and no disrespect, but were they always getting the services that they need or getting the education that they need? And one of the beauties of being a probation officer, we make sure and do everything we can to make sure that they get all those services that they need and build those relationships.
Relationships. I think that's a major problem, right? I mean, because often the relationship between a husband or wife or a boyfriend and girlfriend, relationship between parents and kids gets broken because of the offense, and it's hard to repair it. How do you help them to repair these relationships?
Well, it's been my experience that no parent, I'm talking about juveniles, no parent really likes to come into family court and you interview them and you get their socio background and things of that nature. And sometimes you meet with resistance with the parents because it's an embarrassment that their child is there. It opens up their life and things that might not be so good that's going on. But it's like Ms. Powell said, you meet them where they're at, you show compassion and concern, and you listen to them when you're going through the interview, even though they may become hostile or whatever. But in my experience, as time goes on, the parent, despite the initial intake, if you kind of sort of show that you really, really care, you're really concerned, they kind of open up to you. We give community events. The parents come to that. One thing that, probation does, we went out into the community and let them see we're part of the community. We're here to help you in any way that we can within the law.
And then we have parent coaches. So in family court, we have parent coaches to help the parent. So we provide the services for the kid, and then we bring the parent in. But then as a respite type of thing, that's what you want to call it, we have parent coaches that help the parents get through the process. And then it's all about, like Ms. Palmer says, it's all about community engagement. It's all about, so we got these shields with peace officers, but we want them to see that there's a human side to us as well.
That's great.
And you have to, and my style was to let them see as much as me as possible without giving too much of me, right? So I let them know that I'm a human being, and I make mistakes, I make choices in life, and that I'm no different than they are.
This is Bill Ayers on 95.
I wasn't this gun-ho, I'm just a human being, just like the rest of you guys.
Absolutely.
Just like they are.
All right. This is Bill Ayers on 95.5 PLJ. This is our Community Connection show that we do every week. And we have two guests tonight. Dalvini Powell, who is the president of the Probation Officers Association of New York, and Joanne Palmer, who is now retired as a probation officer, but she was one for 32 years. And she was a supervising probation officer in family court and also in adult services. And they're telling us a little bit about their lives as probation officers and the kind of services that they provide. One of the major problems that we have in the criminal justice system is recidivism. The rate is very high, not just in New York City, but all over the place. Recidivism is very, very high, and people often get out of jail and then wind up going back to jail again. What are some of the things that you both learned in your long years here that have helped you to help offenders to stay out of jail, to change their lives? What are some of the things that you've learned that have been helpful?
I think what Ms. Palmer said, meeting them where they at, not trying to force it down their throat,
right,
and to help them take accountability for the actions or the choices that they've made, and to help them have them be a part of the process instead of dictating to them what we think it should be.
Okay.
And giving them a choice, and then working together, as I said before, with them and their support team, their support system, and getting them to where they're at. Now, the reality is, are we going to always see change within the time frame that they've been sentenced to probation? Because a person gets sentenced to probation from between family and adult court from 1 year to, in a family court, Joanne, from 1 to 2 years. In adult from
2 years,
right,
yeah.
And in adult court from 3 to 10 years, depends on their charge. But it's all about, like I said, where are they when they walk in your door? You have to be able to determine where are they at. We have different stages of change that the department has introduced, and it's real. So we have to see pre-contemplation. I'm not sure of all of them, but there's different stages where a person comes in that door, and you have to determine where that's at. Just like when it comes to substance abuse, can I have a person because a person walks in my office and they in the conditions of probation might say find them a drug program, but the reality is how ready are they to stop using drugs?
Yeah, exactly.
That's that. You have to be real about who's coming in that door. And I think one of the reasons that, now, do I know the recidivism rate? No, I don't. And I'm not going to pretend to say that I do. But there's no perfect science when it comes to dealing with the people.
Yeah, it's a one-to-one kind of relationship.
It has to be.
Yeah.
It has to be. Because you cannot do one size fit all. That's not realistic.
Exactly.
And it's not fair.
So you have a whole array of services that you provide for people. And do you try to hold them accountable? So let's say if you get them into a drug rehab program or an alcohol program or any kind of program, is the way of following up so that you don't just send them there, but they have to then report that they're going on a regular basis?
Right. See, probation, when a person is sentenced to probation or placed in family court, they call it placed. Right. With them comes how would you say, Joanne, a contract. There's a conditions of probation that they have, that when they got sentenced to probation, it's agreement between them and the courts.
Right. So
our responsibility is to enforce those conditions of probation and make sure that they abide by those conditions of probation. And one of them is not getting arrested, going to school, getting a job. They might add additional conditions to those probations, and we have to make sure that those conditions of probation is met. But when we do that, we have to kind of prioritize, because for one person, one condition might be a priority doesn't mean it's going to be a priority for another. So that's the supervision component of the probation, because remember, we also do the investigation component. We do the investigations. Those investigation reports follow, in family court they call INRs. They follow an individual throughout the whole criminal justice system. From the beginning, whether they get sentenced to probation or they get sentenced to incarceration, our reports are with them throughout the whole time.
So, folks, as you're listening to us here, you're getting, I think, a really good education about the probation system in New York City from our two guests. And you can find out more about the union, the United Probation Officers Association. Their website is unitedprobation.com, unitedprobation.com. Their phone number is 212-274-9950, 212-274-9950. Do you get a lot of people who are not, they're not on probation, but they have somebody who is, and they come to you? Can you help them as well?
Yes.
In family court, of course, you have kids that might be predisposed to criminality, okay? Lack of a better word.
Okay.
So you try to get them to the services that they may need for that child, okay, or that person. That's in family court. Additionally, I wanted to piggyback off of Ms. Powell in terms of compliance. When we put in family court, when a young person goes into a program or whatever, we monitor that.
Okay.
We provide supervision. We make sure accountability. We make sure that they're there. If they're not there, we find out why they weren't there. Why you're not going to this program. Like Ms. Powell said, there's not one side that fits all. You might put a person in a program for counseling for whatever reason, and that might not be the program for them. So you put them in something else. There have been children that they went through, let's say, 3 or 4 programs, and finally they got it. They got the program that's good for them. So it's an ongoing process. That's what probation. That's what we do.
So
if at first you don't succeed, try again, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you can't. You shouldn't know. You should never give up. You shouldn't be so quick to lock a person up and send them back to jail. We're trained to, whether it's adult or family, because I have to keep overlapping the two. And to go back to what you asked, we can help a person that's not on probation. We can help a person we can have a family member of a probationer that might need services, because if by giving that family member services might help the person that's on probation get them to where they need, right? We have had kids, we have had parents, we have had kids on probation whose parents were alcoholics or had issues themselves, and we direct that parent, sometimes with the help of other agencies, to get that parent what they need to help their child. We might have a wife who has issues, in an adult or has needs, and we might have to help her get her to where she needs in order to help her husband. So we are very diverse. We are truly about the community at large. Absolutely.
I think it's so important to know that this isn't you're not simply 700 people whose job is to just stand over somebody and make sure that they're doing the right thing. You're trying to provide them the resources and the kinds of relationships that they need in order to succeed.
Right.
That's very important, I think, for anybody listening to know about the probation system, that it isn't simply something to kind of punish people. It's rather just the opposite.
Right.
To make sure they don't have to get punished again.
And people tend to get us mixed up, and I'm so grateful for you today, because people historically have gotten us mixed up with everybody but who we are. We've gotten mixed up, especially with parole.
Sure.
We've gotten mixed up with corrections. Somebody even the other day told me they thought we was court officers. I mean, no disrespect, but we are who we are. We are probation officers. Our whole objective, like I said, we are the alternative to corrections.
Right.
So they don't come out and then come to us. We try to prevent them ever going in.
So that's the difference between probation and parole, right?
Right. Parole is after they serve their time, after they did anything a year or more. Probation is the state. Probation, we're governed by the state as far as state mandates, but we're employed by the city. It's like a quasi type thing. So we got like that dual thing going on, but we have and we can, an adult, a person can get sentenced to sometime under a year in corrections and then serve the rest of their time with us.
You have a term that you use that I kind of focused on here, and that is to create a new now. Tell us what that means.
Yeah, that's our commission is new. What's the new now?
Excuse me?
The new now is the new way we do probation. So our commissioner Anna Bermudez, her main goal is these are called Supervision Plans, IEPs, LSARs, and the new now is changing the way we do probation. At the end of the day, the objective is to reduce recidivism and help people change their lives. The approach is maybe a little different, but at the end of the day, it's still the same thing. So we create these. We have these tools called LSAR, and family court is called YLS, and we determine based on the social, the criminal, and other aspects of the crime itself to determine where a person should be and how they should be supervised within a department at different levels, right? So in probation, when we talk supervision, now let's talk supervision. When we talk supervision, those tools help us decide whether they're going to be in high risk or low risk, levels of probation. And when we deal with people that come through the system with all different types of offenses. And they could be from petty larceny to sex offenders. And then we have to, with those new tools, we figure out how they're going to be supervised.
Well, let's talk for a minute about drugs, because certainly we have a major problem with heroin and some of the big drugs. But lots of the arrests in New York City and every place have been about marijuana. And the percentage of people of color who use marijuana and people who are white who use marijuana is about the same. And yet most of the people who get arrested and wind up in jail for this are people of color. How is that being changed?
Aren't they supposed to be working to make this I don't know.
Yes, they are. That's
right.
That's a key thing. They're trying to, first of all,
decriminalize. Yeah.
They're legalizing medical marijuana. I think pretty much everybody agrees with that. But then there's the question of whether you legalize marijuana, period. How do you guys feel about that?
I got mixed feelings about that personally. I really do.
Yeah, I do too.
I got mixed feelings. I got mixed feelings because you have to ask yourself, because I was thinking about that today, are they committing criminal activities because they're under the influence of marijuana? Or
did they just get caught smoking?
Right.
That's two different things, right?
Right. So, and then we talk about, like, we were talking about addiction. Like, when you asked us what services do we provide them. So now, does that go out the window? Like, is that it's the addiction part, does that still exist or not exist? Is that the underlying reason why, when we do these assessments now, is that going to now be one of the considerations as the underlying reason for the behavior?
Mm-hmm. That's a good point.
So I got mixed feelings. I don't know where I'm at on that. I'm not really.
So maybe you're saying it depends on what it is. If somebody has committed a crime that is not smoking marijuana, but they were under the influence of marijuana at the time, that might be one thing. If they just caught smoking a joint someplace, that might be something very different, right?
John, what do you think?
No, I'm focusing on juvenile. Number one, as a young person, your mind is really not fully developed. Mm-hmm. So to add marijuana or any kind of synthetic drug to your body, introduce it to your body, it's going to be a problem. It's a concern of mine because the brain is not fully developed. So you say, okay, the person was under the influence, but if you legalize it or you decriminalize it, it's like opening the door. It's like going to the doctor, and the doctor says, okay, take a bare aspirin every day because you have high cholesterol. That's on the adult side. That's something that's supposed to help you. But legalizing marijuana, other than medical, especially for a young person, to me, that's like causing other mental health issues later on, which may develop into criminal behavior as well as an adult.
So this is a very sticky kind of issue, obviously.
Yeah, but I'm gonna just say one more thing. So is the reason to legalize marijuana, is it to help the individual, or is it to, and I'm gonna say this real carefully, keep them in the system?
Okay.
I'm gonna leave that alone, but I'm just wondering because,
all right,
and that could be another conversation. Is it really to help them, or is it to, I don't know.
I want to get to another important issue here for the two of you. Our guest tonight, this is Bill Ayers on 95.5 PLJ with our Community Connection show. We have two guests, Dalvin Powell, who's the president of the United Probation Officers Association, and Joanne Palmer, who is a retired probation officer. And there's a kind of a controversy going on, I know, within your unit and between your union and the city about pay. Tell us a little bit about that. You guys are underpaid. You feel strongly that you're underpaid, right?
Yeah, when I became the president of the union, I did a salary analysis of my members, and what I came up with was mind-boggling. I looked at the salaries, the years in service, and then we have to look at the requirements. And I didn't understand why people who's been on the job for over 10, 15, 20, 25, 30 years never reached their maximum. Mm-hmm. And we have to have the same education. Let me do two parts. We have to have the same education and we have to abide by the same state mandates as the neighboring counties, such as Westchester County, Suffolk County, Nassau County. You know the cliche when New York is.
Sure.
And yet we get paid far less than them. Coming inside the city as law enforcement officers, we get paid less than corrections, police. They throw in fire and the fire department and sanitation. We get paid less. Even some areas of ACS is Board of Ed, but we have to have the same. We have to have all this education. You have to have a master's degree or a bachelor's degree with some experience. But our salaries don't match. It doesn't match up. They just recently the starting salary for a probation officer is, without experience, is $42,000. I mean, how can a person raise a family with $42,000 a year
in New York City?
Right, and especially in New York City, And Ms. Palmer can speak to that. Go ahead, Joanne. We don't tell them about retirement when you retire. Why is that not happening?
Yeah, because your base salary. You look at your base salary. I've looked at my base salary throughout the years, from being a probation officer trainee, then becoming a probation officer, then becoming a supervisor of probation, and I've been in probation for about 32 years, city government for 39 years, 8 months.
Mm-hmm.
I never reached my maximum, my maximum base salary.
Right,
never met it.
Why not?
We don't know.
I don't know.
That's why we're trying to. I mean,
that's what you're trying to figure out, right?
Yeah, exactly. If I knew the answer, I would. I mean, since we was probation officers, I have to give credit to the prior president. If he didn't get us, Dominic Coluccio, if he didn't get us the step monies and longevities, I don't even know where we would be at. And that that was a good thing. That got us a jump in our salaries, but we still nowhere near where we at. I got 31 years as supervisor, and I'm nowhere near my top salary. When I did this analysis, the majority of us is like $10,000-$15,000 from what the maximum is supposed to be, whether you're a probation officer or a supervisor. Mm-hmm. And I just don't understand it. I don't know if it's the way we come in. We're trying to figure it out. That's why this case came about, because I truly feel that. And then the other point is that the outer counties, and no disrespect, again, they're predominantly people of non-color. The inside the city, the people the agencies that I mentioned, they're predominantly men. And they're reaching their caps. Their salaries are. We can start the same, but for some reason we get left in the dust. And it's like chasing a carrot. We just can't seem to get there for some reason.
Well, there's two reasons. One of them is that you're women, and the other one is that you're people of color. We live in a society that still has a great deal of racism and sexism in it. Women don't get paid the same as men for the same work. We know that.
Right.
And it's about 80%, 75% of the two people doing the same job, a man and a woman, and the woman gets about 20-25% less than the man in comparable jobs. Now, that's changing, but it's not changing fast enough. And certainly, I know that of the 700 folks that you have that are probation officers, probably a majority of people of color and a majority of women, right?
Right, 78%. I say 78% is people. 78 to 80% is about even. 78 to 80% of females and people of color. And how they get you, they'll say that. And I was told when I was looking into this that you got to find an agency that's comparable. We are so diverse that we kind of fit into. We definitely fit into law enforcement and social work. There's only one probation department in the city of New York, but there's how many, Joanne? 57 counties throughout the state. So to compare us, we're only one probation department. Mm-hmm. So we trying to come at it from different angles based on experience, based on the requirements. I don't know, but I was going to say.
So you're you're thinking of doing a suit against New York City, right?
Right.
Tell us what that's about.
Based on the fact that we're not getting paid the way we feel we should be getting paid. And if we're law enforcement and we're not getting paid the way other law enforcement agencies are getting paid, accommodations have been made for other agencies, and they're not being made for us.
Mm-hmm. Now, is it going to get worse in October? There's this talk about the raise the age question and how that affects your salary.
well, how it affects us. Our salaries is not going to change, but we know that for other agencies, new titles have been created. Their salaries are far more better. Their package is better than ours, and they're being guaranteed max on their salaries. Mm-hmm. That's not happening for us right now. We're negotiating, so I'm hoping that we can get some kind of changes in our salary because of this. Because the department is doing an excellent job in hiring, but over the past year and a half, we lost over 10%.
Oh boy! And the major reason has to do with
that's a lot for a small agency. That's a lot.
Yeah, and that's a lot. A major reason has to do with salaries, I assume, right?
Yeah, it does. When you talk to the Manilians are looking for money, and I don't blame them. They look at and they're not shy about letting you know that I can't live off of this,
mm-hmm.
And it's sad because the city and department, they invest so much time and money in training these people. Amazing, right, Joanne? 6-8 weeks of training. Yeah. They get fundamentals and peace officer training and firearms training and all this wonderful training, and then they take this experience and they go to parole in other agencies or federal probations or something. Some of them are now leaving the city because they can't live here.
Mm. And
so it's like, where's the return on your investment?
Yeah. So if you go to Westchester County, Suffolk County, Nassau County, people who have the same jobs that you have are making much more. Yep.
And the other day we was looking at the starting salary for a probation officer trainee in another county. They starting at $53,000 as a trainee. Listen, and as a supervisor in New York City, what is it, Joanne? 54.
54. That's right.
54 is a little in that ballpark as a supervisor in New York City.
So the person in training in this other county is making almost as much as a supervisor in New York City.
And that's right.
Wow.
Something is wrong. Something is absolutely wrong. And our caseloads are far higher. Our caseloads are higher. We do, we all do the same work, but we have more volume, right, Joanne, in New York?
Oh, yeah, the volume is very high in New York City.
Right. But we rise to the occasion, but we got more on our plate as far as the numbers.
This is Bill Ayers on 95.5 PLJ. We're here with our Community Connection show, which we do every week. And you can give them a call at the union, 212-274-9950, if you want to know more about this, more about being a probation officer, more about this whole crisis in jobs and in salaries. Their website is unitedprobation.com, unitedprobation.com. And our two guests tonight are Dalvini Powell, who is the president of the union, and Joanne Palmer, who is retired, but she was a probation officer for 32 years. I didn't ask you, Joanne. Did you pick up another job since you retired, or you're not working now?
No, I'm not. I didn't pick up another job. I'm still trying to adjust being retired.
Being retired.
I will say this, that my years at probation has been rewarding to me. That's why I stayed
for so long.
Despite the salary, because I went there because I wanted to make a difference.
Okay.
Ms. Powell and I worked together. We clicked. We've known each other since adult services as well. But working in family court as supervisors together, we were out there. We went to the schools. Correct me if I'm missing anything, Ms. Powell.
Yeah.
We went to the school to talk to the kids. Not that they were on probation. We didn't want them to get to that. We didn't want them to enter into the criminal justice system.
So you get into the education system to try to convince kids to stay out of your system.
Yeah, we do career days. We get invited to come to the schools, and we'll do career days. And we spoke to kids from pre-kindergarten all the way up through high school. And it's so funny, the babies in pre-kindergarten know more about the criminal justice than the adults.
Yes.
It's just funny. They tell us about what the, not probation, but about the system itself, which is kind of funny but kind of sad. But
it's very sad because probably somebody in their family has been a part of that system.
Right. And everybody that comes through the system are not bad people. Some people, I consider them none of them bad. I just feel like they just need that second chance. And whether they get it on the first go-around or they get it on the second go-around, but we plant the seeds. I consider us gardeners. I have so many cliches for us. We're like the gardeners. We plant the seeds of hope, the seeds of change, the seed, and hope that one day they will blossom into something good, right? We nurture, and I would like to consider our job like we're like nurturers in so many different ways. But at the same time, we have to deal with the victims too. We can't forget the victims. We provide services for those on probation, but we also have to consider the victims that we have to also communicate with and find out what their need is too.
Sure.
Like in domestic violence cases, people who've been assaulted, people who've been robbed, we talk to them too. We don't forget them. We can't forget them. So not only do we deal with the probationer, but we got to deal with the community that's been victimized in some kind of way.
Mm-hmm.
So then we try to do things like restorative justice and stuff like that. But probation officers have a lot of responsibilities, not complaining. It's a beautiful job. It's just that we're not getting the respect and recognition that we need to get.
Tell us about Article 78, and the suit that you're trying to bring to the New York City.
So our attorney, Yitzhak Kirkland, has been trying to get information from the city about the design of the probation officers and the supervised probation officers that work at the agency as far as our agenda, our salaries, years of service, and they're not providing her. They're not being cooperative. And so she had to go about and sue them to get the information.
Do you have any kind of relationship?
Like you can't walk through the halls of probation and see who's there. So I don't know why that's an issue, and that's probably more for her to speak about.
Do you folks have any relationship with the mayor? Have you talked to the mayor about this, and is he on your side or not?
I don't know. I have no comment on that. I don't know.
Okay, I guess
I don't know.
That's a minefield you don't want to get into. I see.
No, I haven't. No, not at all.
Okay, all right. So you both have been doing this work for many, many years, and you stayed because you felt that you were making a difference.
Yes.
Now, after all of these years, do you still feel that way, that you've made a major difference in people's lives? I know you have in some lives, but do you feel overall that you've been able to make a difference in the community and in the lives, not just of the people who are offenders, but their families as well?
Joanne?
Yes. I feel that I made a difference with several people. Even if you make a difference with one, that's a major accomplishment. Mm-hmm. Throughout my years there, I found the job to be rewarding despite the challenges. To tell you the truth, I really miss probation because I did a lot within the community, exposing the parents to different programs, accompanying them to maybe a facility to help them with counseling and things of that nature. It's rewarding. I mean, I've been rewarded by probation. I think I received 2 awards from probation. And when I was at Alternative to Detention, and I really enjoyed the best part of probation was helping the community, helping the people. Mm-hmm. You know, you walk up and down, and what gives me I see kids in the street. They say, "Hi, Ms. Palmer, I'm doing the right thing."
That's great.
Yeah, that's
rewarding. I'm
that's
telling
a great
you,
feeling.
It brings tears to my eyes. You all right, Ms. Palmer? Nobody's bothering you?
Yeah.
That's rewarding because for them to tell you, "Hey, Ms. Palmer, you gave me when you raised your voice at me, you cared about me." You know, it's little things like that they show that you treating them almost like your own child. Mm-hmm.
And today we marched in the African Day Parade, and we participate in that parade every year. We did the Hispanic Puerto Rican Day Parade, and we did the Israel Parade. And I got to tell you, when we walk down those avenues, people cheer us on. We feel like superstars for some reason. They cheer us on. Hey, probation's in the house. One lady's like, where can I get a job for probation? My daughter's waiting to be called, or they'll be like, hey, that's my old probation officer. They're like, we're actually respected and looked up to in the community because we, treat the people like people.
You change people's lives. That's why, right?
Yeah, one of the union leaders I spoke to about a year or two ago, he said probation is the essence of what community policing will be looking like in the future, and you're starting to see that.
Good.
The relationships change with all law enforcement, and which is very mimicking what we do, developing relationships. It's all about developing relationships.
And the two of you have pretty much lived in the same communities for a number of years, right?
Yeah, yes.
So you got to be known in the community as a probation officer.
Yeah. And because of my position, I'm all over the 5 boroughs. So, as a union president, I still try to stay engaged with my members and the clients. Mm-hmm. So every now and then I'll go to a meeting and I'll see one of the younger people, or even an older person, adult, and I'll still sit down and I'll still talk to them. I'm never going to stop being a probation officer.
That's great.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, Ms. Powell, besides trying to get the city to let you look at the records and advocating for a higher salary, what other changes do you want to see in the system?
I like to see, for my members or for my members, like I said, I want to see them to get what they deserve. I want them to get the respect that they deserve. But for the system, I would like to see less people come through the system. I like to see less people of color, anybody come through the system. When we talk about criminal justice reform, I want them to be for real. And in order for this to happen, you have to do like what we're doing right now. We have to have the services for them that's going to stick. It shouldn't be a Band-Aid. It should stick. It should be something that's going to be permanent. You understand? That's why I said when we talked about the marijuana part, I'm real shaky about it because I'm not really sure if that's what is needed. But it's got to be something that's going to be long-lasting and have long-term effects.
Ms. Palmer, how about you? You're not a probation officer anymore, but you certainly have some thoughts about changing the system. How would you do it?
I do. What concerns me within the system is that we have our rate of turnover, probation officers staying, working.
Right.
That's a concern of mine because I've seen and I worked and I trained good people. They would be phenomenal, but they leave because they're not making the money to support themselves and or their families. So, as Ms. Powell said, they're hiring people and they're doing, good things, and that's wonderful. I get it. But in order for any department to work, you need the experience, you need the staff to perform, to make a difference.
What happens is because of the turnover rate, then you have to reestablish, relationships with those same clients again. So your client, like Joanne said, they become family almost. Mm-hmm. And then here we go. Somebody, they get, the probation officer leaves, or the supervisor leaves, because now we're starting to have people, not just the new people coming in, now we have 10, 15, 20-year people who's leaving because they're getting ready to retire and they need their pensions to look better, so to be better, right? So then the person leaves, the probation officer leaves, you have to build the trust all over again, and you have to start all over again. And it could be very, it affects the whole process all over again.
So what would it take besides raising salaries to get people to stay in the system, good people that are doing a good job?
So in addition to the salary, I think our caseloads need to be, the caseloads, a lot is being asked of us nowadays. Not saying, but we always rise to the occasion. But I think that we need to be dealt with some compassion. We need to be dealt with some respect, and we need to, and some consideration. And I don't think that's happening.
So,
I really don't.
Let's just take the average probation officer. How many clients would they have at any given time?
It depends on the unit that they're in, and whether it's family court or adult. It depends. It could vary.
Okay, let's talk about family court.
45 to 50.
45 to 50.
In adult, family court, Joanne, is what? Depends.
It depends on the unit.
It depends. It's not even. We're so diverse. You can't even. It's not that clean cut. But I would say an adult. Depends, 45 to 50, family court, maybe, I don't know, it could be a little half in that, but that's going to change now because of raise age.
What does that mean, raise
So with that law that was passed, so because of the what they say, the development of the individual's growth. Now we will be dealing with so 16 and 17-year-olds will now be shifted over to family court. But see, with probation, we've always dealt with 16 and 17-year-olds. Mm-hmm. In adult, we had them; they're sentenced to probation at 16 and 17 and up, and we have an ACE program which is called Anybody Can Achieve. They've always dealt with that. In family court, they grow into 16 and 17-year-old, right, Joanne? They can come in at 15, 14 years old and then age into 16 and 17.
Sure. So do you think is this new rule a good thing?
Yeah, it's a good thing. I think it's a good thing because I don't think the kids should be with adults. But in my opinion, you know how school is designed? You got elementary, middle school, and high school. Mm-hmm. Personally, I really think there should be a middle. Oh. I think it should be a middle. Mm-hmm. I don't know if 16 and 17-year-olds should be with 14 and 13-year-olds. You understand?
That's kind of different.
There should be something in the middle. They come in as young as what, Joanne? They can come into the system as young as what?
7 years old.
Right.
Whoa, 7 years old.
Not that we had that. Not that we have that. But I'm just saying.
But I'm saying the law states, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, and they can come and they can be as old as 99, 102. But I'm just saying, I think that in my opinion, if you want to do criminal justice reform, there should be a middle. There should be something in the middle. It shouldn't be the family. If you got family, you got adult, and then you just it got to be something in the middle to me, I think, in my opinion.
Well, I mean, a 17-year-old is different than a 12-year-old, obviously.
Yeah.
That's what you're saying, right? Yeah.
Right, and I think when we go to school, right, we go elementary school, we go nursery, elementary, middle school, and high school. It should be the same thing, something like that. I might be saying a lot, but I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Okay. So there's a lot of larger issues here. One of the issues, of course, is just reforming the criminal justice system. We've talked a lot about that. Another piece of it, of course, is having living wage jobs. And there are just many, many people in New York City and all over the country who are working hard, but they're not making enough money to feed their families. And what we're hearing tonight is that some of them are probation officers. They're not making enough money. But certainly in our city here, we've got millions of people who are working at minimum wage or less, or just a little bit above minimum wage, and we know that doesn't work. So
no, it doesn't.
Part of what the governor is doing of raising the minimum wage, I think, is a very good thing, and it's going to be done in New Jersey. We have a lot of people listen to us in New Jersey and Connecticut as well. We've done whole shows on raising the minimum wage here, and it's certainly something that needs to happen. And the other thing, of course, that needs to happen is that we need to have health care that is reaching more people. The Obamacare was a step in the right direction, and it's been pulled back in a lot of cases, but not in New York State. New York State is one of the better states for Medicaid, and we have to make sure that happens because lots of people who are coming into the criminal justice system, part of the reason is because of bad health in one way or another, whether it's mental health or physical health, something like that. And you know, because you've dealt with lots of kids who come into the system and they're not healthy. So these are all other items that need to be dealt with. But I want to thank the both of you for the kind of work that you've done over all these years to help so many people to avoid going to jail. This is the probation system, and our two guests tonight have been Dalvini Powell, who is the president of the United Probation Officers Association of New York City, and also Joanne Palmer, who's retired now but worked for 32 years as a part of the system. I want to thank both of you for being with us tonight and to thank you for the careers that you've had that have helped so many people.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you for giving us a chance to tell our story.
All right. Well, you did. And hopefully, and let's give the phone number one more time for your union, 212-274-9950, 212-274-9950. And if you want to know more about the union, you can go to unitedprobation.com, unitedprobation.com. Thank you very much for being with us, folks.
Okay, thank you, and good night.
Till the next time, this is Bill Ayers, and I wish you much peace and love and hope. That's something we all need a lot of.